WikiLeaks has released some more emails, and it reveals that Hillary Clinton was privately for the TPP when she was publicly against it. It also shows her disdain for environmentalists, all right? So let's go to our first one. So this is from Robbie Mook, and if you see there, they're talking about the TPP, and it says this week they're releasing a letter from former DNC chairs endorsing the deal, meaning the TPP. Deval Patrick and Tom Daschle are going to roll out a progressive coalition supporting it. They've been told she's going to get asked about the TPP at the Sanders event. I don't think Lee would ever try to screw her, but I can see someone else doing it. And then they go 3 questions. Do we think this thing is actually going to move, or can we just hang back? If we do think it's moving, do we want her to announce her support via letter before we announce that? So right there, what that shows is that if they think the TPP is going to, quote, be moved on, meaning passed, voted on, what have you, they're saying right now, well, if that's going to happen, does she support the letter? When do we announce her support for it? So that's what that is. And now let's go to the video, because at the same time, these emails are being passed along. Hillary Clinton was saying this.
Now looking back on it, it doesn't have the results we thought it would have in terms of access to the markets, more exports, et cetera.
So are you saying that as of today, this is not something you could support?
What I know about it as of today, I am not in favor of what I have learned about it.
Well, there's actually one more that goes with that. Let's watch the next video, too. This is from 2016.
As Secretary of State, you supported TPP, and then, which of course is that trade agreement with a lot of Asian countries, but you now oppose it as you make your second bid for president. If elected, should Democrats expect that once you're in office, you will then become supportive of these trade agreements again?
I did hope that the TPP negotiated by this administration would put to rest a lot of the concerns that many people have expressed about trade agreements. And I said that I was holding out that hope that it would be the kind of trade agreement that I was looking for. I waited until it had actually been negotiated because I did want to give the benefit of the doubt to the administration. Once I saw what the outcome was, I opposed it. But I do not currently support it as it is written.
So, again, that email release shows the exact opposite was being said inside her campaign. And it also, when she was giving a speech about last year about fossil fuels, she was renouncing them. She was giving a speech, and she said she was giving at Clinton's meeting with the building trades union in September last year. It was made public, where she said she defended natural gas and fracking under, quote, the right circumstances. The meeting occurred at a time when she was fighting a challenge from Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. This is from the IB Times, International Business Times. It says Bernie Sanders is getting lots of support from the most radical environmentalists because he's out there every day bashing the Keystone Pipeline. And, you know, I'm not into it for that, Clinton said at the meeting, according to transcripts. My view is I want to defend natural gas. I want to defend repairing the building, the pipelines we need to fuel our economy. I want to defend fracking under the right circumstances. I'm already at odds with the most organized and wildest of the environmental movement. They come to my rallies and they yell at me and, you know, all the rest of it. They say, will you promise never to take any fossil fuels out of the earth ever again? No, I won't promise that. Get a life, you know. So that was revealed that she was saying that. Now, it just goes to show you what everyone was afraid of, right? Just like in the previous emails released, when she said you have to have a private stance, you have to have a public stance. And now we're seeing what her private stance was, right? And so we're seeing that she wants to defend, well, she's made no bones that she's going to defend fracking all around the world. And we know that that's a big climate change pusher. And we also know that she's going to find a way to support the TPP, right? And so that's what I think this reveals. And no, it doesn't reveal anything criminally, but it certainly reveals our worst suspicions. What do you think about that, Alonzo?
Well, okay, on the TPP issue, you know what I looked at? The date on this email.
Oh, okay.
So the date on this email is March 2015.
March 21, 2015.
This is the one where they said you have to say, in case you have to support it, say this. Now, the video you showed was March 2016. Right. And she's saying she's against it.
Right.
Which means she may have changed her opinion But you know, in other words, this is a year later. This email is a year before.
Well, the first
So-
video was from October of 2015.
Right.
So
but
it's just a
that's
few
still,
months later.
Yeah, but that's still 5 months, 4 or 5 months. She may have changed her opinion. Look, and I'm not going to say Hillary doesn't change her opinion based on polls or based on which way the wind blows or what she feels is going to work for her. She does do that. But I don't know I don't know if I'm going to lose my mind over this. Is this horrible? You know, is this, oh, she's a terrible person? Not in my opinion. Now, people are entitled to their opinion. The one on climate change, you have to look at what she's saying here. Will you promise never to take any fossil fuels out of the earth again? No, I won't promise that. Get a life. No one's going to promise not to take any fossil fuels out of the earth ever again. That at this point in the life of the earth, in our energy, and the fact that we have, I don't know how many 100 million cars on earth that run on fossil fuel, and you're going to promise to never take fossil fuel out of the earth, it's impossible. So yeah, you make a crazy statement like get a life. It's not like she's saying, you know, she's not saying it to everyone. She literally says in here, the most organized and the wildest, the ones who are outside yelling at her, this is what she would say to them if she was allowed to say whatever she could.
I hear. So you're saying she's only saying get a life to the most extreme environmentalists.
Well, she's saying get a life to people who will you promise never to take any fossil fuels out of the earth again.
Okay.
If that's the question, she's responding, get a life.
Okay, so
you have to.
Let me speak on behalf of the wildest and most extreme environmentalists. First of all, get a life is the least of my problems with what's in here. I mean, you know, that's one of those phrases where, you know, you could say to me, you know, wear a purple shirt with a jacket. I said, get a life, man. I'm not going to combine those. So that could mean almost anything as far as I'm concerned. But she went on now I was working for Bernie at the time, so I was paying very close attention to those debates. She went up there in front of Bernie and a debate audience and said, they asked, do you or do you not oppose fracking? She didn't answer truthfully. She said, I want to put so many restrictions on fracking that practically speaking, it was a whole long paragraph. It will never happen because I'll want to control it so much that there'll never be fracking again. And you might remember then they turned to Bernie and said, do you support it or not? And he went, no. And so that was a good moment for Bernie. But the fact is, here she is in private saying, I want to defend fracking, at the same time that she's going out in public and saying, I'm going to put so many rules on it that it's never going to happen. Now, look, none of this is a revelation. We know who Hillary is. I think if you're paying attention, you know who she is. I don't think, Alonzo, I don't think that TPP changed a lot in its last year. I mean, it did in certain details, the rice quotas and all that stuff that they had to work out. But to go out and be talking about what I'm going to support, I'll tell you what changed between March of 2015 and March of 2016, because I went to work for Bernie in March of 2015. In March of 2015, he was at 3% in the poll, and he was a joke to the Democratic Party establishment. By March of 2016, she was running for her life politically, and that's what changed, and that's why she changed. Now, is that a news flash about Hillary Clinton, that she's the kind of politician who will say what she has to say in order to get by, in order to get elected? No, to me, it's not where I am out of this is, it's nice to have a confirmation, but, and I quarrel with all of my Democratic friends who say, you know, we've got to talk about her as if she's a wonderful person. She doesn't represent what I represent. She's not a wonderful person in my eyes. I do want to stop Donald Trump. That's where I come from. So, but don't make me pretend she's a wonderful person, because you know that she's probably going to get elected, and November 9th, those of us who care are going to have to be out in the streets preventing her from doing a lot of the things that she wants to do.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, regarding this statement, I want to defend fracking under the right circumstances. Again, what audience is she talking to? Meeting with the building trades union.
Right.
If you're meeting with the building trades union, you say, I want to defend fracking. That's what, and is it a political move? Absolutely. Would 95% of politicians do it? Absolutely. She's not committing. She's saying, I want to. Politicians always make this qualified statement. You know, it's like used car salesmen. Is it guaranteed? Well, it's great. You know, it's always a qualified statement that when you come back, you can't say, well, you didn't lie, but you made a political statement, and that's what I believe she's doing here.
But
You're
you know
talking.
what? Sorry, I didn't.
You're talking to a building trade union and you say, I want to defend fracking. Now, again, I just think that that's a political move, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but Elizabeth Warren wouldn't have said it. Bernie Sanders wouldn't have said it. Russ Feingold
We
wouldn't have said it.
don't know what Elizabeth Warren would have said.
Raul Grijalva wouldn't have said it. Keith Ellison wouldn't have said it. I could name you 30 politicians who
and
wouldn't have
none
said
of them are the candidate for president.
Right. So
Because-
let's not pretend she is what she isn't. That's where I come from.
So I'll say this about these revelations. People defend it by saying there's nothing new in there, and there really isn't anything new in there. But at the same time, what it does is it confirms that she's going to pass. But I already knew she was going to pass the TPP. Everyone knows right now Barack Obama's trying to pass the TPP. Right now, the top of her party, and she's not saying anything against it. Nobody's saying anything against it. So that's the thing. It just kind of, and so no, there isn't a smoking gun where she has to resign from the campaign or anything, or she did anything illegal. It just goes to the surliness of how both political parties have kind of turned their backs on being progressives, on the environment, right? This is fracking is horrible for the environment. It's worse than coal burning, from what they're saying now, because of the methane traps. Is it something like 80 times more carbon? It traps 80 times more warmth, right, than carbon dioxide.
They're having all those earthquakes in Oklahoma now that are caused by fracking. Have you been following?
Yes.
that?
Right, and in Texas and in other places that haven't happened. Listen, I'm not defending fracking. To me, fracking is funny because it's like, okay, how about if we crack the surface of the earth and get energy? What could go wrong? It's crazy. I joke about it like millennials. Look, we had a good run. So sorry, we had to crack the earth to drive SUVs, but it's like vaping. It's the same thing. It's like, yeah, well, you can smoke these steamed chemicals. We're not sure if it's healthy, but we'll figure it out a few years down the line. So don't get me wrong. Don't think I'm sitting up here defending it all the way. Right. I'm just saying that this is the reality of the world we live in, and I think politicians they do operate in a reality. Like I say, I love Barack Obama. Does Barack Obama lie to me now and then? Yeah, he does. Right. I know he does. It's like my uncle promising me a bicycle for Christmas when I know he's unemployed.
Right, I had an uncle like that.
I know that bike ain't coming, but I love my uncle.
Are we cousins? Because I had an uncle like that too. But no, I relate to what you're saying on a lot of levels. But I'll tell you the one thing. And by the way, like what you're saying is real, unlike what some of the people who say to me, like, "Oh, she's great." It's like, no, be realer than that. Well, she's not great, but a lot of politicians are like her. Okay, that's real. Now, but where I differ is that I do think that one of the things we got out of the Bernie campaign and a couple other things that are going on is that we don't have to settle for that anymore. Might take a few more cycles, might take a lot of work, might take election reform and all the things Cenk and the Wolfpack and those people are trying to do. But I think the day is going to come. Put it this way, I think we've got to stand here and not be contented to have politics practice this way anymore.
In a perfect world.
In this world.
In a better world. But I don't know. You talk about campaign reform, et cetera, or even this. It's always, politics is always follow the money, right? So when you look at something like fracking versus environmentalism, fracking's got oil companies behind it, and oil companies are paying these politicians and so on and so forth. It is possible to change, but it's a hard fight because you're asking a politician, hey, go against the money. And they just don't do that. It's almost like instinctive to them. They're trained. I think a lot of them go in early in their career, they're idealists, and then over time the system beats them down. And the unfortunate thing about our politics, right, is a politician's only job is to get reelected, not to do anything.
For sure.
And
I would say it's much worse than we're kind of framing it right now. I think, we know from the Princeton studies and other studies that we don't live in a democracy anymore. We live in an oligarchy, meaning that you and I don't have any influence on what happens as far as lawmaking, right? Only the top 10% of wage earners, maybe you are, top 10% of wage earners correlate. It's their views that correlate with legislation. The bottom 90%, almost no correlation, right? Even people like Krugman, who's in the tank for Hillary now, will freely admit that we live in an oligarchy. He said there's no question about it.
Right.
So, and right now, it's like this is a sham anyway, right? This is proving to me that we have a sham government. All these ones, though, when she says she has a private position and she tells that to her donors, she doesn't tell it to her voters. She tells the donor, and you know this is the real one because I'm telling you I have 2 positions. I would never say that in a speech, and so that's the thing. I think our government has already been taken from us. And no doubt, right? Like that's not hyperbole, right?
Right.
So it's really happened. We live in this is a sham election. Those are sham debates run by the parties. This is all, and it's very close to fascism because corporation and government have it's like government serves corporations. It's not the other way around even anymore, right? And so I think that all this just shows the rot at this middle. The center of our political life here in America, of our politics. It's just completely taken over, and it started, and that's happened globally, right? Because capitalism is failing globally, right? Right now, Brexit is an example of what the people do when they get a chance to rebel against it. Greece has been screwed over by the capitalists. Next is coming Italy. 20% of all their loans are garbage.
Spain, look.
Spain. So go ahead.
I agree with everything you said except this. To me, the big enemy it isn't Hillary Clinton. It isn't even money in politics. The big enemy is despair. The big enemy is accepting the situation the way it is.
Yes.
Look, Bernie, I don't work for him anymore. I can say he was not the perfect candidate, but he almost got that nomination. Can you imagine what a different kind of candidate we can turn this thing around, and what these guys are doing, Cenk and the other guys would try. I agree with everything you guys are saying, except any kind of vibe that says, well, we got to tell you, this is just the way it is. No, it's the way it is today, but we can change it.
I agree with you.
And I think the big problem is information. People don't have information. I mean, this is Young Turks is a perfect example of something outside the mainstream media, but how many people watch compared to watch the mainstream media, right? And you talk about the debates and so on. We don't have a moderator in the debate that says, hey, that's not the question. The question is blank. That's what people need. When you talked about Brexit, what was the most Googled term the day after they voted for Brexit?
I don't know.
Brexit.
Okay.
Because people didn't know what they were voting for. They didn't even know what they were voting. And a lot of people voted against their own interests because what's going to happen is their local plant, factory, et cetera, is going to shut down or not because people don't have information. It's unfortunate, but and it gets back to what you're saying. If you have a more educated populace, if people understand more what the issues are and hold the politician accountable to those issues versus the stump speech or calling each other names, then we would have a better system. Then the system would work because they would be held accountable. And I think the big problem there is, the fourth estate, the media has become just another corporation, just another for-profit enterprise, whereas years ago, they used to get in people's face. They used to question people, and they held people accountable. No one's held accountable for what they say anymore.
We need independent media to make sure that we hold corporate media accountable. The people that can make that happen is you. You make the Young Turks possible. TYTnetwork.com/join. Join us. Be the revolution.